The town of Ridgewood was the kind of place where nothing ever truly changed. The streets were quiet, the same faces passed each other every day, and even the gossip seemed to move at a slow, predictable pace. Everyone knew who you were, where you worked, and who you loved. Everyone knew what you did, except for the things people tried to hide. The cafe on Main Street had been there longer than anyone could remember. Its windows were foggy with age, and the neon sign above the door buzzed softly like a tired insect. Inside, the air smelled like fresh coffee and fried dough, and the walls were lined with framed photos of Ridgewood's past, old town parades, high school football teams, and black and white pictures of people who had once lived here and were now just memories. Maya moved through the cafe like a shadow, quiet, careful, almost invisible. She wore long sleeves even in the heat of summer, and her hair was always tied back in a neat bun. The regular customers barely noticed her, and those who did simply assumed she was shy. But the truth was more complicated. Maya wasn't shy, she was afraid. She had learned early on that fear could be hidden behind a smile. She had learned how to keep her voice calm, how to pretend everything was fine even when her body trembled. She had learned to move quickly, to keep her head down, and to make sure no one asked too many questions. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the cafe was quiet. Most people were at work, and the few customers who were there were lost in their own thoughts. Maya was wiping down tables when the bell over the door rang. A motorcycle roared outside and then stopped. The sound alone was enough to make everyone in the cafe look up. Dante, Reaper, Voss walked in. He was a legend in Ridgewood, a name that made people lower their voices. His black leather jacket was worn, the edges frayed from years of use. Tattoos peeked from under his sleeves, symbols that most people didn't even understand. His eyes were cold and steady, the kind of eyes that seemed to look through you instead of at you. He sat at a corner booth, far from the windows, as if he didn't want to be seen. But everyone saw him anyway. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She had heard stories about Dante, about how he ran the Black Thorns, how he was ruthless and dangerous. People whispered that he had killed men without blinking. Yet, there was something different about him. Something in his presence that wasn't purely violence. When Maya brought him his coffee, she tried not to look at him directly. She set the cup down gently and stepped back. Dante's gaze followed her. He didn't say anything. He didn't order food. He simply stared at her arm. Maya froze. She felt her skin go cold as she realized what he had seen. Bruises. Dark, swollen marks shaped like fingers. They ran up her forearm and disappeared under the fabric of her sleeve. She had hidden them for weeks, covering them with makeup and long sleeves, pretending they didn't exist. But Dante had seen them anyway. He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He didn't call attention to them. He just sat there, his eyes calm and unreadable. The other customers shifted in their seats, pretending not to notice the tension in the room. But Maya could feel it. The silence was heavy, as if the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Maya returned to the kitchen, her hands shaking. Her coworker, Jenna, looked at her with concern. "Did he say anything?" Jenna whispered. Maya shook her head. "No, he just stared." Jenna frowned. "That's not good." Maya swallowed hard. "I know." She couldn't stop thinking about Dante's gaze. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't curious. It was familiar. Like someone who had seen pain before and recognized it instantly. Maya continued working, but her mind kept drifting back to the bruises on her arm. She tried to calm herself, to tell herself it was nothing. But deep down, she knew the truth. Dante had noticed, and in Ridgewood, once someone like Dante notices something, nothing ever stays hidden for long. That night, Ridgewood felt different, like the air had shifted. The sun had sunk behind the hills, leaving the town in the quiet, uneasy darkness that always came before trouble. Maya locked the cafe door and turned off the lights, her movements automatic. Her mind was still replaying Dante's calm stare from earlier. She kept telling herself it was nothing. He was just a customer. He was just a man. But the bruises on her arm told a different story. She hurried through the back alley toward the parking lot, trying to stay calm. The sound of her footsteps echoed against the brick walls. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to reach for her. Then she heard the engine. A motorcycle roared into the lot and stopped with a harsh skid. The rider swung his leg off the bike and walked toward her with a familiar swagger. It was Ethan, her boyfriend, the man who had promised to protect her, the man who had broken her. Ethan's face was red from anger, or from drinking. His eyes were bloodshot, his breath heavy with alcohol. He looked at Maya like she owed him something. "You took too long," he snapped. Maya tried to keep her voice steady. "I was just finishing work." Ethan stepped closer, and Maya instinctively took a step back. He grabbed her wrist with a rough grip. "Don't play innocent with me," he growled. "You're mine." Maya flinched. She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Pain shot through her arm. She gritted her teeth and tried to stay silent. She knew if she cried, if she screamed, if she fought back, he would only get worse. "Please," she whispered, barely audible. Ethan leaned in close, his breath hot against her ear. "You think you can hide things from me? You think you can talk to other men?" Maya's heart pounded. She stared at his face, searching for the man she once loved. But all she saw was anger. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the cafe's entrance. Dante stepped out from the darkness. Maya's heart stopped. Ethan's face twisted into a sneer. "What are you doing here?" Dante walked toward them slowly, like he was walking into a trap, but he wasn't afraid. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of danger. "Let her go," he said. Ethan laughed, like it was a joke. "Or what? You're going to stop me? You think you're my boss?" Dante's eyes didn't move away from Maya's bruised arm. "I'm not your boss," he replied calmly. "I'm just someone who doesn't like seeing people hurt." Ethan's laughter faded. Maya watched, terrified, as Ethan stepped forward and shoved Dante. Dante didn't flinch. He didn't even raise his hand. He simply placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder, pushing him back gently but with undeniable strength. Ethan's face twisted in rage. "Don't touch me." Dante's voice was low and cold. "I already did." Ethan tried to swing at him, but Dante caught his fist effortlessly. He twisted Ethan's wrist and brought him down to one knee without a single harsh movement. The sound of Ethan hitting the ground echoed through the parking lot. Maya stood frozen, her eyes wide. Dante leaned down and whispered to Ethan, not as a threat but as a warning. "If you ever touch her again, I will make sure the whole town knows what kind of man you are." Ethan's eyes widened with fear. Maya could see it. He was afraid of Dante. He didn't understand why, but he was afraid. Dante stood up and looked at Maya. "Go home," he said softly. "And if he comes back, call me." Maya's voice trembled. "Why would you help me?" Dante's expression softened for a moment. Like something in his past had stirred. "Because I've seen too many people like you suffer," he said. "And I'm tired of it." Then he walked back into the shadows, leaving Maya alone in the parking lot with her fear and her bruises. Maya stood there, stunned. She didn't know what had just happened. But she knew one thing. For the first time in a long time, she felt a small flicker of hope. The next day, the town of Ridgewood buzzed with the kind of whispers that made people look over their shoulders. Word traveled fast in a small town, especially when it involved a biker gang leader and a quiet waitress. People in the cafe kept stealing glances at Maya, as if she were a piece of gossip that might spill its secrets at any moment. Some looked at her with sympathy. Others looked at her with judgment, as if she had done something wrong to deserve her bruises. Maya tried to ignore them, but the weight of their eyes pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. She kept telling herself that she was safe now. Dante had warned Ethan. He had said he would help. But Maya knew the truth. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who listened to warnings. That afternoon, as Maya was cleaning tables, the bell above the door rang again. She looked up, expecting a regular customer. Instead, she saw Ethan standing there, his face flushed, his eyes dark. He was holding a beer in one hand and a cigarette in the other. He walked toward Maya like he owned the place. "Maya," he said loudly, "we need to talk." Maya felt the air in her lungs tighten. Her hands froze on the cloth she was holding. "Not now," she whispered. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You think you can just ignore me? I told you to come with me." Maya shook her head, her voice trembling. "I can't. I'm working." Ethan laughed, cruel and loud. "You always have an excuse." Maya's heart pounded. She looked toward the back door, thinking of running. But she knew there was nowhere to go. Ethan would follow her. He always did. The cafe felt too small, too close, too full of people who could see what was happening. Ethan took another step closer. "Come on," he said. "Let's go." Now. Maya backed away, her eyes darting toward the kitchen door. Just as Ethan reached for her arm, Dante stepped out from the corner booth like he had been there the whole time. The entire cafe went quiet. Even the clinking of plates stopped. Dante didn't look angry. He didn't look surprised. He just looked steady. Ethan's face twisted in contempt. "What are you doing here again?" Dante stood up slowly, as if he was getting ready to face a storm. "I'm here to make sure you leave her alone," he said calmly. Ethan scoffed. "You think you can tell me what to do?" Dante didn't respond immediately. He simply stared at Ethan with a calm intensity that made the room feel colder. Ethan's anger rose. He moved closer, his jaw clenched. "You think you're tough. You think you're better than me." Dante's voice remained quiet. "No, I just don't tolerate bullies." Ethan lunged forward, throwing a wild punch at Dante. But Dante was faster. He caught Ethan's wrist, twisting it with ease until Ethan winced in pain. Ethan fell to his knees, unable to stand. The cafe gasped. No one had ever seen Dante act like this, so controlled, so precise. He wasn't brutal. He wasn't violent for the sake of violence. He was simply decisive. Dante leaned in close to Ethan, his voice barely above a whisper. "If you ever touch her again," Dante said, "I will make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. And believe me, when the truth comes out, you won't have anyone left." Ethan's face went pale. Fear flashed in his eyes. He tried to stand, but Dante pushed him back gently, like he was handling a dangerous animal. Then Dante turned to Maya. He didn't smile. He didn't speak in a soft voice. He looked at her with a seriousness that made her heart ache. "Go home," he said. "And don't look back." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. She nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. As she walked out of the cafe, she could hear the whispers of the customers behind her. But she also heard something else. A quiet, steady presence. Someone who had stepped in when she couldn't protect herself. Someone who had seen her pain and refused to ignore it. Outside, the night air hit her face. For the first time in a long time, Maya felt a strange new emotion rising inside her. Not just fear, hope. The day after the incident, Ridgewood felt like it was holding its breath. The town didn't know what to make of Dante Voss anymore. He was a name that used to bring fear. People whispered about him as if he were a monster, someone who belonged outside the law, outside society. But now, those same people found themselves whispering a different kind of rumor. "Did you hear what he did? They say he defended her. Why would he do that?" Maya worked her shift like she always did, but nothing felt normal anymore. She could feel the eyes of the customers on her. Every glance seemed to ask the same question. Did you really get help from the biker gang leader? She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain it. And she didn't know if she was even safe. At the back of the cafe, Jenna watched Maya closely. She had been there when Dante stood up for her. She could see the fear in Maya's eyes, but also something else, something like relief. "Are you okay?" Jenna asked quietly. Maya forced a small smile. "I think so." Jenna nodded, but her eyes were worried. "Be careful. Ethan might come back." Maya's hands tightened around the cloth she was holding. "I know." She couldn't shake the feeling that Ethan would not give up so easily. He would be angry, and angry men were dangerous. Then, as if the universe wanted to prove her point, Ethan's truck pulled up outside the cafe. Maya froze. Her heart hammered in her chest. The blood drained from her face. She wanted to run, but she stayed still, because she knew she couldn't run forever. Ethan stepped out of the truck and walked toward the entrance. The cafe went silent again. The customers watched, holding their breath. Ethan looked around, his eyes searching for Maya. When he saw her, he smirked. "There you are," he said. Maya stood frozen behind the counter. Ethan walked closer, and the room felt colder. "Did you really call him?" Ethan asked, nodding toward the corner booth where Dante had been sitting the day before. Maya's throat tightened. "No." Ethan's smile turned cruel. "You think he's your knight in shining armor. You think he can save you. Maya's voice shook. "Please just leave me alone." Ethan laughed. "You're mine." He stepped forward again. But before he could touch her, the cafe door opened. Dante walked in. This time, he wasn't alone. 3 men from his gang followed him, their faces stern and serious. The cafe's atmosphere changed instantly. The customers felt the tension shift. It was no longer just a fight between 2 people, it was a warning. Dante stood in front of Maya like a shield. Ethan's face hardened. "You brought your gang." Dante looked at him calmly. "I brought witnesses." Ethan scoffed. "You think you can scare me?" Dante's eyes narrowed. "No," he said softly. "I think you're already scared." Ethan's hands trembled. He looked around the cafe, realizing that everyone was watching him. He saw the fear in their eyes. He saw the judgment. He saw the truth. Dante leaned in close to Ethan and whispered, loud enough for the whole cafe to hear. "If you ever hurt her again, I will make sure the town knows what you are." Ethan's face twisted in rage, but he couldn't move. He knew he was trapped. He backed away slowly, then turned and walked out of the cafe, defeated. The town watched him leave. Then, Dante turned to Maya. He didn't smile. He didn't offer comfort in words. He simply held out a small card. Maya took it with shaking hands. "If you ever need help," Dante said, "call this number." Maya stared at him, tears in her eyes. "Why?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. Dante's expression softened slightly. "Because I've seen too many women like you suffer," he said. "And I'm tired of it." Maya looked down at the card, then back at Dante. For the first time in her life, she felt like someone saw her pain. She felt like someone cared. The whole town was still watching, still whispering, still shocked. But the rumor that spread the fastest wasn't about Dante being a biker gang leader. It was about him being a protector. And Ridgewood would never be the same again.